What's going on, everyone? I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday, and I hope you've been watching movies recently. Welcome back to Cinema Buzz on KCYP 97.7 The City, where we talk about movies and the latest film buzz that are making the headlines. Today, we got news coming from James Gunn's new DC Cinematic Universe. Pixar announces their newest movie, and then Nicholas Galitzine gives us a new look at the He-Man costume for the latest Masters of the Universe as filming wraps up, and much more news to come. We'll talk about some movies that we've recently watched and also look at some Letterboxd viewers' favorite movies. Now, as we all know, James Gunn has been really hard at work with this past year working on the DC Cinematic Universe. We know that he recently released Creature Commandos on Max, which has done really well. It's an animated, just think of it as an animated Suicide Squad. He's been writing and producing the new Green Lantern TV show that's going to come out hopefully next year. And he's also he just directed the recent Superman movie, which should come out in a couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that. But now we got news that we got a new actor to portray Clayface. His name is Tom Rees. He's going to portray Clayface, and it's going to be directed by James Watkins, who made The Woman in Black, The Descent Part 2, and most recently Speak No Evil with James McAvoy. So Tom Rees' work includes Apple TV Suspicion. He's been on The Gentleman and Kandahar. And DC Studios decided to go with the fresh, unknown face, which I think is a really good idea. I think if it was portrayed by a bigger, more known actor, an A-list actor, I think it would take away the mystery of who Clayface is supposed to be. Now, I don't know too much about Clayface personally, but I know he can be portrayed as like a really scary character, especially since Clayface, one of his main things is he's a shapeshifter. And I just think adding an unknown face would really add to that unknown aspect of Clayface. You don't know who he could be shapeshifting as. So I think they made a great choice for that. So also, another person who's involved with Clayface is Mike Flanagan, who recently directed The Life of Chuck, which has been getting really good reviews recently, but he's mostly known for his horror movies. He did Doctor Sleep, Gerald's Game, The Haunting on Netflix. He's done really good horror work, and he's pretty much renowned for making a lot of good scary movies. So I think it's really interesting that they go through the horror aspect of this movie. A lot of people have been theorizing that Batman is going to make his debut in Clayface because they are making Batman the Brave and the Bold, which is going to include his son, Damian Wayne, in this movie. But we haven't really heard much. So people are speculating that Batman is going to show up, at least just have a cameo or show up in the background or have some sort of integral part into the story of Clayface. But making it a horror movie just seems like the right way to go about this character. So, and of course, you have Mike Flanagan, and like I mentioned before, you have James Watkins making this. So, and they both work in horror. So, this is really exciting stuff that we're getting for DC. And so, I think the movie is slated for a 2026 release, which should be soon, just as long as you have the patience for it. Next up, we have Pixar Studios. Now, Pixar's been getting a bad rap recently for their recent movies. A lot of the criticisms are coming from people saying that they've lost their touch, their magic touch. Their animation looks the same, it's uninspired, they've lost their originality. And I don't really see where that criticism is coming from. Sure, they've had their duds, but I know that Luca, Soul, Inside Out have done really well. Even though Luca and Soul was on streaming, Inside Out 2 was probably one of their biggest box office hits in recent years. So I think Pixar just hasn't really lost their touch. I think people just aren't paying much attention now. But I still think Pixar is a powerhouse when it comes to animation. And their new movie Gato, who's going to be directed by the Luca director Enrico Casarosa, is working on this next feline feature. So it's set for a 2027 release, and we do have a concept image to work off of. It shows off a rustic Italian city center, and on the right you see like a canal, which looks like it could be Venice, and it looks like a painting that you would see at a fine arts museum. But what's really interesting about this image is, or this concept art is, it looks like a blend of digital Pixar style animation, their signature style, and sort of like a watercolor hand drawn oil painting of the sorts. It looks like it's going to be a mix of the two, and it has been confirmed by Variety that it is going to be a mix of that. It also reminds me of like a culmination of impressionism art style and fauvism. It just looks like every frame is going to be perfect when you watch it on the big screen. And from the looks of the synopsis, it describes our feline lead named Nero questions his life and makes an unlikely friend that could change the trajectory of his life. It's really nice to see that Pixar is doing more original movies. I mean, they have been doing more original movies, but they have been making sequels, which I feel just limits their creativity and imagination because we all know that Pixar just makes really good movies. Of course, they have the Toy Story movies, but we've seen enough of those, especially since they're making a new Toy Story 5. And also, you have sequel expectations, which really just kind of, I feel like, ruins the chances of a movie. You just have to give them a chance, but everybody just looks at their predecessor and wants each movie, each sequel to be better than the last. So it's nice to see that they're sticking to more original movies. I'm definitely really excited for Gato, especially with the animation style. I think it's going to be really unique and it's going to set them off from other animated studios that are going to release anything in 2027. So definitely keep a lookout for Gato. He-Man wraps up filming, and the lead star, Nicholas Gallatin, reveals a sneak peek onto the outfit for He-Man. So the picture doesn't really reveal too much, as it mostly looks like a silhouette of the actor, but you do see his power sword sheathed on his back. You see the long curly brown hair. You can see that he has that bandana, the boots. It just looks awesome, and you can tell he's been putting a lot of work into his body. You can see the definition in his muscles, even in that dark lighting, even if it's just a silhouette. So the photo was posted by Nicholas himself, and in that photo, he was stating how proud he was of the movie, and I quote, "Grateful to the cast and crew members that made this movie possible." Now, the last Masters of the Universe movie came out in 1987, starring Dolph Lundgren as He-Man. So, as you may know, Lundgren is best known for his roles as the Soviet boxer Ivan Drago in Rocky IV and reprising his role in Creed II. The movie tanked with audiences because it had cheap visual effects and a very cheesy story. But I mean, it was a fantasy movie in the 80s, and they were all pretty much the same. But it did struggle with the budget because the same producers for Masters of the Universe were also in the middle of making Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, which also didn't do well in the box office. So both of those movies really, really just did not make it, and they tanked. They lost a lot of money. They got horrible reviews from both critics and audiences. And this is also Masters of the Universe is an older IP. It's from the 80s, so you're gonna have an older audience more interested in it. So I don't think it's really gonna catch a lot of eyes for younger people. It's sort of the same story when it comes to GI Joe when Snake Eyes came out back in, I want to say, 2020 to 2021. I'm a big GI Joe fan, and Snake Eyes is my favorite character. But that movie just didn't do so well because it's an older IP. More people in like their 30s or 40s, older generation, they're more interested in that, and kids just aren't into that. So honestly, Masters of the Universe could be a hit or miss. I think it's going to be a great movie. I'm not really a Masters of the Universe fan, but from the looks of it, it looks like a lot of people are putting faith into this movie. They obviously show that they care with the outfit that we've seen. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. The movie is gonna release later in 2026 because they did wrap up filming, so now they're in the post production process. So we'll just have to wait and see in movie theaters how it's gonna do. And in other news, if you're a fan of the Netflix series Mindhunter, I don't know if you guys remember that day that it was announced that essentially they pulled the plug on Mindhunter. Now, Mindhunter season 2 ended on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and then they just announced it's not going to be renewed for a third season. And that was since 2020. We haven't heard anything since. And there's this April Fool's prank that runs around a lot of places where they show an image of the show and they announce that they're going to renew it for a third season, but then you remember it's April Fool's. And every single year I fall for the same trick and I get so mad at myself. It just really ruffles my feathers. But now we do have a chance. We have a chance that this is going to get renewed, but not just for a TV show. So look at this. So actor Holt McCallany, who is in Mindhunter, was talking to CBR recently, and he met with David Fincher, who was the producer and showrunner for Mindhunter, saying, and I quote, "I had a meeting with David Fincher in his office a few months ago, and he said to me that there is a chance that it may come back as 3 Count that, 3 2-hour long movies. But I think it's just a chance. End quote. So obviously, this doesn't mean that it's confirmed that Mindhunter season 3 or the 3 movies are coming out, but there is a chance. So that gives us hope. So one of the big reasons I'm just trying to, have realistic expectations for this is David Fincher is a really busy guy. He made a movie recently for Netflix. I don't remember the name, but it was with Michael Fassbender, and he's also working on the sequel for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's working with Tarantino on that. Also, he has another Netflix TV show called Love, Death, and Robots, which recently released their latest season, which has also done really well. So I think David Fincher just has a lot in his hands. But McCallany stated that Fincher is very detail oriented and he has to be 100% on board with the project before he even decides to fully commit. Here's another quote by McCallany that says, "There are writers that are working, but David has to be happy with the scripts." So, like I said, uh, there is a chance, but you can't confirm anything yet. One of the biggest problems with Mindhunter was it was an amazing show, but there wasn't many viewers. Like, it had essentially a cult following. Not only that, the show was very, very expensive to produce. Each episode was very expensive. And Netflix executives and everybody who was working on the show just started to say, nothing is balancing. We have low viewers, but really good reviews. But this is also really expensive. They couldn't really find anything to justify the cost and renewal for a third season. So that's when they decided to just pull from the show completely. Like I said, I'm still holding out hope for this. So hopefully we'll get 3 2-hour long movies to just sort of finish the story for Mindhunter. Only time will tell. Now, if you love A24, especially their horror movies, you're going to be thrilled to learn that they recruited Jane Parsons, who's also known as Kane Pixels on YouTube, to direct the Backrooms movie. Now, what makes this special is that Kane Parsons is best known for his work on YouTube for the Backrooms series, which is really popular. And if you don't know what the Backrooms is, it's sort of this like horror story that's been culminating on the internet and has gained a lot of notoriety. It's essentially like another dimension. You're put in this room, there's yellow walls, there's buzzing lights. It's just completely empty, and it's supposed to give you that feeling of loneliness, but also something is in there with you. You just don't know what it is. Another really interesting note about Kane Parsons is he's only 19 years old, making him the youngest director for an A24 production. We currently don't have a lot of details because everything is being kept under wraps. We just got the announcement that Kane Parsons is going to be the director, but they are slated to start production this summer. So we'll just have to see what other news we can get. But if you haven't seen Kane Parsons' work on YouTube, like I mentioned, he has a Backrooms horror series on YouTube, and it has accrued over 190 million views alone. Everybody's saying nothing but good things about this. So I think it's really important that we recognize young talent outside of Hollywood because there's just a lot of amazing and creative, dedicated artists that need to be seen. And A24 does a really good job about picking their projects, their talent, their directors, everything. They've had some misses, but honestly, all of their wins outweigh their losses. So I just think it's really good on A24, and I'm super, super happy for Kane Parsons on this project. Not just because he's the youngest director, but he's getting recognized. You have the Raka Raka brothers who made Talk to Me and Bring Her Back. They started on YouTube and they were getting recognized, and A24 picked them up. So I think they saw something really, really special in Kane Parsons. So this is just great to hear. So how about we talk some movies that we watched? One movie that I saw that has been on my list for the longest time, it's They Clone Tyrone. It's a story about a drug dealer, a pimp, and a sex worker uncovering a dark conspiracy that's been affecting their neighborhood. So, this conspiracy it's super trippy, and I'm not going to spoil it, but it did leave me super distraught. John Boyega gives an amazing performance, and Jamie Foxx and Tiana Paris, they're just freaking hilarious. I love the back and forth that they have. They hate each other, but also they depend on each other. Even though it's a pimp and sex worker relationship, it's just you really see them come out as not just funny characters, but you see their soft side as well, which I think is really great. The film, it leaves a commentary about black culture, redlining, which, if you don't know, it was a practice to prevent minorities and people of color from owning homes, and it created a lot of racial divides in America. That's why you get a lot of poor neighborhoods and stuff. You get high crime rates in those areas. It's a blend of like science fiction, drama, and a comedy. Tiana Paris. She was probably the funniest person in the movie. Jamie Foxx definitely was a second. She just brought a really, not only physicality to her comedy, but also just her line delivery, the way she would deliver her lines, all her jokes. She was really sassy. She knew when to clap back when somebody was insulting her. I loved her performance so much. It was really something else. She was super funny, and I don't think anyone else can match that and her line delivery. So for me, They Clone Tyrone gets 4 stars. This movie feels like it's a cult classic. I hate to say that because I think the movie should have done really well where it would have gained a lot more recognition upon release. But and this movie was released, oh man, I want to say it was released in 2022. I think earlier than that, but when it came out, I just didn't hear anything about it. But when you look online, you see that there's lots of communities that love this movie. It just didn't get the mass recognition that I think it deserved. I think part of it had to do was because it was on Netflix. Uh, I mean, it's great that we get Netflix originals. You know, Netflix is giving people these opportunities, but we also need to see this in theaters. Everybody, say what you want about the movie theater. There's some movie theaters that aren't that great. There's some that are really good. You have the Alamo Draft House. Probably have some of the best customer service, best theater experience. We need more of these movies to be up on the big screen, and I think They Clone Tyrone needed that chance. But either way, this movie was fantastic, and I would definitely recommend it to everybody. Next up, we watched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the latest one, which came out last year. Do you guys remember the old adage, apes together strong? You know, that famous line that Caesar created in the previous movies? Well, the apes do get together, but they create a dictatorship and an autocratic empire, so it's pretty much a dice roll. I really love the reboot franchise for Planet of the Apes. I think it's great. The motion capture is amazing. Andy Serkis did a really good job as Caesar. As you know, Andy Serkis is just the motion capture king. He played Gollum and Schmeagol in the Lord of the Rings franchise, Supreme Leader Snoke in the recent Star Wars trilogy, and of course, he does Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies. So I'm also a really big fan of the originals. The first one that came out in 1967, I believe, and Escape from Planet of the Apes. I loved it. Some say that it hasn't aged well, and I do agree with them, but it was a movie in the 60s and it was really good for the time. But I think you can watch it with nuance and understand, like I said, it's a different time. But the acting was great. The practical effects that they did for the physical monkey costumes in the original movie was also really good. And of course, just the sci-fi element. Sci-fi movies back in the 50s all the way up to the 70s were really something else. So I really appreciate those movies. And of course, the reboots wouldn't exist without the original movies. So with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, you follow Noah, who's the main character. He's part of a tribe that trains eagles, but his tribe is kidnapped by these ape marauders led by their dictator, Proximus Caesar. The visuals, like I mentioned, were really good. The motion capture technology has really done jumps over the years, and you can really appreciate the actors. Every single actor in the movie, they have to put on those motion capture suits. I've heard that they're super, super uncomfortable at times, especially when you're shooting for long sessions. Not only that, they have to take the mannerisms of a monkey. If you look at the behind the scenes shots, they have these like extra appendages that they have to wear to make their arms longer. That way they can crawl like a monkey, They have to get into that physicality. So it's really taxing on their body, but also just think about it mentally. They get tired over the long periods of shooting. Like I mentioned, the costume's really uncomfortable, but in the end, they get the job done, and their performances really get you immersed. It feels like you're actually surrounded by apes who have evolved over time and just taken over the world. So it's just really fantastic. As for my gripes with this movie, I didn't really care too much about the main character Noah. He didn't leave much of an impression on me. He did have a good motivation, and he did a really good job in this movie. But other than that, it just didn't really sit well with me, especially after Caesar being the main character for the last three movies. It's a really you got really big shoes they need to fill after the death of Caesar. So for me, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes gets 3.5 stars. It's not my favorite in the franchise. I think my favorite out of all those rebooted movies would have to be Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. But I still think this is a really great addition, and it adds more to the lore for the rebooted franchise. And for the last movie, I saw the How to Train Your Dragon, the live action remake. Now, I'm not really an avid fan of the How to Train Your Dragon movies, although I do recognize how good they are. The animation, the acting, the story, it's just really cool. I mean, a lot of kids had like a Knights and Dragons phase. I know I was one of them. The designs for the dragons are really cool. One thing I was worried about is, since it's a live action movie, how are they going to design the dragons? Are they going to try to make them look like completely real, like make them fit in a human, real life human universe? Or are they going to take inspiration from the original animated designs and still give them that cartoonish look, but without the exaggerated features? And they went with the original designs and added some tweaks to make them fit in the world. And I really appreciated all the work that they did. Of course, you have Toothless design. He still has those really big feline eyes. He acts like a dog. This His skin, or his scales, I guess you would call them, were really good as well. And I think the actors, the problem with a lot of CGI movies, you kind of notice, like, you can tell when an actor's acting with something CGI, they have like a green tennis ball to look after, but you can see that the actors just really, that you don't see that. Like, you see that, you feel like they're actually interacting with an actual dragon, like, if you know what I mean, when they're acting. So I think they did a really good job with all the dragon designs. The actor for Hiccup was phenomenal as well. He's just like Hiccup, and the thing that I like is he isn't trying to emulate the original voice of Hiccup. He has that like teenager kind of voice, that like sort of nasally, like using the back of your throat to make that nasally voice. He still sounds like a teenager, really shy guy. He messes up all the time, but you still really like him. He's still a very charming character, along with the others. I don't remember their names. Like I said, I wasn't really too invested in the original movies, but everybody else, I mean, the twins, they were probably my favorite part of the movie. Twins in any movie have to be really good. Twins are probably some of the funniest people you'll ever meet. They have a really deep connection with each other. And the twins in this movie did a really good job. They're super funny, and I love the chemistry between the actors. They definitely added to it. And the guy who plays Stoic, which was Gerard Butler, uh, Stoic in the original movie, he's a really big guy. He has super broad shoulders, the most muscular forearms you've ever seen. He's a really big guy. This guy killed a dragon when he was a toddler, so the legends say. And I think Gerard Butler really brought that physicality to it. And I think the set designers did a really good job as well. From the huts, from the costume design, I think it really helped create Stoic and bring him into a real life character and make him look like the giant warrior that he is in the original movie. So for How to Train Your Dragon, I'm also going to give it 4 stars. I think it was a really good remake. Uh, Definitely one of the better remakes. I think Disney needs to take notes and see how to actually make a live action remake for this, because it was really well done. So I can't wait to see the sequel to this, How to Train Your Dragon 2. So now, for our last segment, we have our letterbox reviews. Now, for this last segment, we have Goldmount, who's a friend of mine on Letterbox, who sent his. So for his first Letterbox top four, he has Prisoners by Denis Villeneuve. If you don't know Denis Villeneuve, he's the guy who recently directed the last two Dune movies. He also did Sicario. Um, who was it? Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal is in this movie as well. I saw this movie, and it was probably one of the best like cop slash noir movies. It was really cool. It was dark. You really understood the father's plight to find his daughter. If you don't know what this movie's about, this man, his daughter's kidnapped, and he's trying to find his daughter's kidnapper, and he's working with a detective who's really good, but they're both struggling to find all these cryptic messages that the kidnappers left behind. But this movie was just amazing. I loved it. Probably one of my favorite crime movies. And that ending, I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. For Prisoners, I don't remember what I rated it. I want to say I gave it 4.5 stars. It was that good. It was just so awesome. And honestly, I kind of hope we do get a sequel for Prisoners, but I doubt that, especially since Denis Villeneuve is working on the new Doom movie. He's just a really busy guy, so one can hope, right? Now, for the next movie, we have The Batman from 2022, directed by Matt Reeves. This is another crime movie favorite of mine. I love that we got to see more of the detective aspect of Batman. Now, with the Christopher Nolan trilogy, those are good movies. I love them. Growing up as a kid, I thought they were really cool. But when I watch them now, I realize there isn't really much detective work that you see from Batman in this movie or in the Dark Knight trilogy. As good as they are, Batman is always called the greatest detective in the world. I mean, he's from DC, Detective Comics, so Batman has to live up to that. And with this one, this Batman, I think they did a really great job finding all the clues for the Riddler. It has that dark noir style. It was very dark. It was almost unsettling too, especially with the main villain, the Riddler. I think he was really great. And of course, you have the sequel, which is still, I believe, going through development hell. I know there was a rumor saying that Matt Reeves said if they don't get a green light yet in a couple of months, that he's going to drop out of the project. So hopefully they announce something soon for the Batman sequel, part two, and Matt Reeves stays because we need him for this movie. Next up, we have Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. This is another Jake Gyllenhaal movie on the list. This is great. I love Nightcrawler. I forgot the main character's name in this movie that Gyllenhaal plays, but he's basically a psychopath. I think he's one of the movie psychopaths that these psychologists analyzed, and they said it was pretty accurate. So if you don't know what Nightcrawler is about, it's this guy. He basically turns into a freelance journalist. He goes around driving in the city looking for accidents, crime, anything that could make the news, and he sells that footage to news outlets for money. But it takes a dark turn when he starts committing the crime so he can film them. It's really good. Jake Gyllenhaal does a fantastic job. He's really creepy. You can tell something's off about him with his mannerisms. The way he talks, it's almost like he's acting. Like I know Jake Gyllenhaal's acting in the movie, but I'm talking about the character that he plays. He's acting. He's like hiding his true self. He's acting like this really go happy guy, but you could tell something's very artificial about the way he delivers his lines, the way he talks to people, the way he expresses himself. It's really unsettling, and I think it's a really great character. And this is a great movie as well, so I definitely recommend you watch Nightcrawler. Now, Memento, I haven't watched Memento in the longest time. I just remember that it was probably one of the most trippiest movies I've ever seen. You really have to pay attention to this movie. This is directed by Christopher Nolan. And if you know anything about Christopher Nolan, you really have to pay attention to his movies, especially with Memento. This is another crime movie. I would also say falls under the neo noir genre. It's about this man who keeps forgetting who he is, but he tattoos all of his memories on himself so he can remember who he is, where he was last, what happened, and why it happened, and what he needs to do. So Memento, it's definitely gonna throw your mind for a loop and it's gonna twist your head. But I think it's worth it if you really pay. Like I said, you really, really have to pay attention to this movie. You have to pay attention to what the characters say. You have to pay attention to the background. I would say go into this movie as blind as you can. Don't look at any reviews. I know you're listening to my review for this movie, but definitely do your best to go into this movie not knowing much. So Goldmount, this is a really great list. I love all of these movies, and obviously you can tell this guy loves crime crime thrillers. I love that. I love crime thrillers as well, but I don't think I love them as much as Goldmount. This is an amazing list. I'm gonna give Goldmount's top four letterbox list a 4.5. This is great. I love it. I think we're gonna as soon as I get home, I think I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go in order. He has Prisoners, Batman, Nightcrawler, and Memento. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna watch each of these movies in order. I'm in the mood to watch crime movies now, so thank you, Goldmound, for the list. All right, you guys. That brings us to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into Cinema Buzz on KCYP 97 The City. 97.7 The City, I'm sorry. Please, like I always say, go watch a movie in a movie theater. Watch any movie that you can. And if you can, get a Letterboxd account and download it. Log all your movies, review them. They can be serious, long, thoughtful reviews, or you can just write a joke about the movie, explaining how it makes you feel. But please, 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 please go watch a movie. It's probably one of the best things you can do. This is Cinema Buzz on 97.7. Thank you for watching.